So, Netflix have recently released Sunderland Till I Die, a documentary series that goes behind the scenes of what happened last season at Sunderland. An absolute shit show, but it's not just simply a season review. It shows us what happens behind the scenes, the community, what the club means to the community, and meet some very memorable, amazing characters behind the scenes, be it staff, fans, and some players as well. So I thought I would give a quick sort of review as such, of sorts. I'm not taking it too seriously. I realise that everyone has their own opinion. This is purely going to be my own opinion. And a lot of people took different things away from this series. Some people, particularly Sunderland fans, some saw it as, a horrible reminder of what happened last season. Some saw it as sort of a soul cleanser because things are going well for us right now. So it's almost, revisiting it and making us realise how lucky we are, to have what we have now in terms of management and what's going on upstairs with Stuart Donald and Charlie and what have you. So yeah, I'm going to go through it and give it my quick review. So first and foremost, the intro music. Probably my most favourite part of the entire series. It's just so beautifully done. Not just the music, the intro to it. It shows the ships and just the city itself and little bits of the fans. It's been beautifully animated. And it just tells a story within itself. The history of Sunderland, what it means. And the song, oh my god. On the river it's the seventh fucking time I've watched it. And it's still fucking getting me. The song is called Shipyards by the Lake Poets, and it's an absolute masterpiece. It just works so well, and it really did make me tear up on several occasions. It was truly, truly amazing. So I give them a follow on Twitter or download that song because it is just beautiful. But in the first episode, we do start off with the church and the priest. He's giving us a speech in the sort of the mass, and he does infiltrate or involve Sunderland a lot with his masses, and it is very much heartwarming, and it does show to people who aren't Sunderland fans, particularly how much this club does mean to the community and what a community club it should be. And of course, that isn't what the club was last season or previous seasons. So that's a really good start, and it gets a really good feel as to what Sunderland is. For people who are unsure, maybe overseas fans who aren't sure as to what goes on around the area. So that was a really lovely start, a really touching start. But now we're just moving on quite quickly. Of course, we do meet other characters. We have the taxi driver who we do see several times throughout, also a very, very lovable character. He, in the first episode, he kind of explains Sunderland in terms of its history, and again, what it means to the community. So it's very much focused on in explaining and introducing Sunderland. So I think that is absolutely perfect. A perfect start to the series. And it definitely caught me. I mean, I cry at Disney, for fuck's sake. So this definitely got me. But then we do move on to the football inside of things. And of course, at the beginning of last season, we did have Simon Grayson. And I tell you what, that man could not motivate a dog to chase its ball. I mean, just before the season is about to start last season, it's shown his sort of pre-season opener team talk where he's gathered all the players and you're thinking, yes, he's going to really lay into him in terms of motivation, make him feel pumped for the season. And my God, was it an absolute travesty. He whipped out this bloody flip chart with a few key points as to what he believed to be the main factors that would contribute towards a successful season. Jesus. Thought, lads, welcome back. Thought I'm going to run through some main points I would like to focus on this season, if that's alright. So we'll start off with the main one. Football. What is football? Apparently it's a sport that we're taking part in right now. So, yeah, football. And what does football need? Football needs goals. Goals is what happens in football, and hopefully we get lots of those this season ahead. And next up on the list is that's just for me. That's personal business. Ignore that. Lamine, stop sticking your fingers up at me. It's unnecessary. It was just an absolute travesty, and no one would be motivated after that shithole of an absolute speech. and what was supposed to be a motivational speech. So you could just see that the lads are going to get off to a shitter. But again, moving forward in the series in a whole, and the progression throughout the episodes, there's little bits of editing that kind of wound me up, and I think a lot of people noticed it. Not that it made too much of a difference, but it just came across a little bit shitty in the opening episode, or opening couple of episodes. For example, we would score a goal against Norwich away from home, and then it would cut to the fans celebrating at the Stadium of Light, which was a little bit confusing, maybe a bit of an editorial error there, but it does improve as the series goes on. It's just a bit of it's just crap, really, that it happened so early doors, and it was only the second episode, and I thought, Jesus Christ, what we're getting in for here. But to be fair, I am probably nitpicking with that, because on the whole, they have produced it very, very well, the Fulwell lads. Now, also, on to one of the main characters of the show, and that was Martin Bain. Now, a lot of people have had split opinions on him after watching this series, and I'm very much torn as well, because we've known him as this sort of snake, this money grabber, which essentially he is, because he was in an absolute shit ton, but, you know, if you're offered that much, you're offered that much. But you could see behind the scenes how much he was running around like a blue horse flying, like a headless chicken, and it did look like he was doing his absolute best for the club, but his hands were tied. He had practically no contact with Ellis Short. He was given next to no funds, or no funds at all from Ellis Short, and he was just sat in Sunderland taking the brunt of all the shit. At least that's how it was portrayed. So after watching it, you know, I did actually feel a little bit for him, and it did look like he was really emotionally affected by everything that was going on. It looked like he was working his arse off to try and rectify what was going on the pitch, but there's only so much he can do, of course. But then I have heard from different people, and we already know little bits and pieces about him, his history with other clubs as well, and the kind of shit that he's done. According to people that know him a little bit better from sources that I have spoke to, apparently that's just an act. Everything that was in that, to him, a lot of it was just an act to make him look a lot better than what he actually is. So I suppose with the thing is with Martin Bain though as well, although he did look like he was working his arse off and he was doing this, that and the other, Jesus Christ, was he not trying to show off his watch collection? So the club is going through a difficult period right now, and it's hard to see what's wrong with the club, particularly when I'm such a beautiful man. Zoom in, please. Zoom. In fact, I'll just look into the window in a dramatic fashion to make it look like I'm really affected. Just make sure the watch is in, please. So yeah, Martin Bain was certainly a very difficult character to judge. There was also several behind the scenes sort of talks with different players when they're in the treatment room, and it was definitely interesting to see that side, although my only critique was there wasn't quite enough of it. Of course, we were treated to little bits and pieces here and there, but you get one episode where you'd see plenty of behind-the-scenes things, like I say, in the treatment room, in training, and little conversations and stuff. But then you get episodes where that would basically be a season review, things we've already seen before, interviews we've already seen before, but just maybe a different camera angle from where obviously the production team was stood, and it did start to feel just like a season review, and that was quite frustrating because, like I say, you get one episode where you get loads of the fans' input, different fans and what have you, but then you get another one where it's just small highlights and chunks from matches that, of course, we've already seen, and I expect that to be in there, of course I do, but then we want interviews and little bits that are going on behind the scenes that we never would have seen, and I feel like that was a little bit few and far between at times. It did start to feel just like a season review. But one of the bits that we did catch on camera was the whole Jack Rodwell scenario, which was an absolute shit show, and I think this just confirms how much I hate the man, because of course he was saying that he wants to play football, yet he was nigh on refusing to play for us when we said, okay, you can go and play wherever you want. He refused, and it just didn't make any sense at all. There was a clip within the documentary where he was sat in, it looked like it was a physio room or a treatment table or what have you, and he sat there, and another player says to him, aren't you playing this weekend? And he sort of sits back, arms behind his back, and just kind of jokingly goes, nah mate, like the little chavvy fuck that he is. So it was definitely interesting to kind of see that as well, to see how he acted, because that was something I really wanted to see, because of course with Rodwell it's all been negative. You know, we never knew. He could have been behind the scenes actually working his arse off, you know, and trying to redeem himself, but he just wasn't given the chance. But luckily with this series and this documentary, we know that wasn't the case. He was just a lazy twat who was on his high horse and thought that he was better than what he was. Because even when he was playing for us, he was absolute dog shit. So he can go fuck himself, in my opinion. Also, seeing the story of Johnny Williams, that was quite sad to see how much football, or being out of football when you are injured, how much it can affect you. He was kind of open enough to allow cameras to go in to see. I think it would have been a therapist of some kind. It's just to speak to. It was obviously affecting him mentally, how much he was getting injured and how much he was spending away from the lads, and he was up there by himself in Sunderland when he was on loan, and he was a relatively young lad, so you do have to feel for him, and he was allowing the cameras to sit in on this therapy session, and you could see he was really, really down, and it was genuinely hurting him. He was a genuine person that was hurting because his injuries have frustrated him that much. It's stopping him from doing what he loves. So that was definitely interesting to see, and he's definitely high in my opinion, Johnny Williams. But I suppose the frustrating thing was, before we did sign Johnny Williams, you have the physios, after they've done a medical on Johnny Williams, they go up to Martin Bain and say, how is he? And explain how he is physically and stuff like that. And they literally just go through this absolutely huge list of injuries he's previously had, little niggles he may have at the time, or things, or warnings of what may come in the future. And he's gone through this whole list of shit that could potentially be wrong with him, or has been wrong with him in the past. And then you look at each other like, good to go, sign him. Where the hell do you get that from? Granted, he was a good player when he's fit, of course, and it is sad that he does get injured all the time. They've just rattled off this list where he's pretty much been injured for his entire career, and then they think, cracking signing. Do you know what I mean? I mean, of course, you have to take a risk when you're that desperate, I suppose. But it did look pretty ridiculous. It was a piss take. Now, moving further down the series, you did have, obviously, when Coleman come in and Grayson was sacked, players did start to figure out Coleman about midway through his tenure with the club. And that did shock me a little bit. I'm going to say see through. I mean, it was pretty much what I said at the back end of last season in my sort of relegation rant, but it did take me a lot longer to see it than some people. I mean, Coleman, he has the most beautiful words, he's the most likeable man in the world, but tactically he's shit. He's really, really shit. He can motivate anyone. But if you can motivate players all you like, but if your tactics are shit, you're losing the game. McGeady, in particular, was very critical, although this was an interview that we basically already heard before, but it was just put into the series. Which again is relatively frustrating. It's basically just reworded interviews that we have already heard before at times. But McGeady was, of course, saying he'd change up formation or bring a sub on halfway through a game with no explanation of how you want him to play and this, that, and the other. And it was good to see that kind of insight from Coleman, and also how soft he was. Like McGeady was saying, there'd be times where we'd be playing shit, we'd be playing poor, or there'd be one glaring aspect of a performance that needed to be addressed, and then Coleman had come in the next day and basically said, you're doing great, lads, you're doing great, just a bit unlucky. When you need a manager to tell you when things are shit, what he thinks is wrong, and he could see it from little team talks that Coleman was having. It was way too nice, and he was terrified to offend anyone. He was absolutely terrified. He'd come onto the training ground after a horrible loss, and he'd be like, oh, you were really, really unlucky there, lads. You did play well, you just didn't get the rub of the green and stuff like that. And you're thinking, what are you doing, man? You were the manager of Wales, you got them to the semi-finals of the Euros. Surely you didn't get through Japan mothering him like that and telling them they're good when they were shit. And I think that's what McGeady wanted. He's an experienced professional. He wants to be told when things are going shit. He wants things to be put right when they're so blatantly wrong. And Coleman didn't do that, unfortunately. But onto Coleman as well, like I say, he was a massively, massively likeable fella. He did everything right, apart from what was going on the pitch. Everything right. The way he wanted to mingle with the community, meeting people, the staff there at the club, which was probably one of the biggest things for me. One of the biggest things that I took out as well is how much you realise that the relationships that are built behind the scenes. I mean, Joyce, the dinner lady, she's again one of my favourite characters. Absolutely amazing woman, absolutely amazing lady. And I tell you what, I'd love her to be my chef. Do you know what I mean? Just the most lovely, humble lady, just so bubbly and constantly having a laugh with the players when they're when she's serving out the food and cooking for him, and she's building relationships because that's the kind of person she is, and the kind of people, people from Sunderland anyway, they're like that. They are warm people, and they're lovely people. Every time I go up to Sunderland, I'm welcomed with open arms, and very, very loving, caring people. Unless you lose 4 or 5-0, then they will fucking kill you. But Joyce, she did build up a very strong relationship with Chris Coleman, and it was absolutely heartbreaking when Coleman did get sacked, and she was reading out the text that Chris Coleman had sent her, just saying his goodbyes, and I'll miss you, and you're a lovely lady, and you made everything so perfect for me at my time there, and I'm sorry I couldn't give the club what I wanted to give the club and stuff like that. And then she was tearing up, and then I was tearing up, and it was just fucking tissues everywhere. Don't cry, Joyce. You'll make me cry. So it made me realise, and makes everyone realise, I suppose, that these people aren't just sort of disposable. You've got managers. We've gone through several managers, and just think of the amount of managers who have built really good relationships with his staff, and then just gone within a few months because they haven't done the job properly, or things haven't gone well on the pitch and they've got sacked. And it does make you realise that. And it was an absolute heartbreak to watch that, but unfortunately Chris Coleman wasn't good enough. So we come to the end where obviously Stuart Donald comes in, Charlie comes in, Charlie Methvin, and you can see what a difficult task they've got on their hands, and he's taking the staff aside on a sort of more personal meeting. They had to do it behind closed doors and basically tell them that, because we've been relegated, because of all the shit that's gone on this season, we are going to have to rearrange the staff may be let go, etc. And that must have been such a difficult job to do. For his first thing, one of his first tasks on his list was to tell the staff that, you're in big danger of losing your job. And it's awful. It's absolutely awful that Stuart Donald was put in that position. But again, from a business perspective, that had to be done because obviously we're overspending. We're going into League One now. They need to save money where they can. So on the whole, I'll just sort of come to a conclusion on the whole series. Did I enjoy it? I don't know whether I did. It was a difficult one, and I think because I don't think I realised how scarred I was from last season, and how, of course, Sunderland fans were some of the most passionate fans in the world, including myself, and I don't think I realised how much last season scarred me, because even though we were getting these cool little behind-the-scenes snippets of this, that, and the other, my head and my mental state was focusing so much on the football of what happened last season, and just all these feelings just came flooding back from what I had last season. And I'm not going to lie, for the next 48 hours, I was genuinely depressed, and it really, really hurt me just to see how mistreated our club had been, but by players and people upstairs and what have you. It was difficult to kind of take in the other behind-the-scenes bit for me because my head was so drawn to what was going on the pitch. It was literally like going back to an ex that you really didn't like, and you were forced to watch, just snippets and footage of you and your ex. That's what it was like. Do you know what I mean? It was just for me. It was a very, very difficult watch. But I suppose that's what they brought out of me. They brought these emotions out of me, the Fulwell lads. So they've done the job in one way or another. Other people, like I say, they've looked at it as a soul cleanser. We want better things now. So that's how I personally took it. And I did actually ask other people who don't support Sunderland what they thought of the series as a whole. My brother, for example, he's a Man United fan, and I asked him what he took from it because he watched the whole thing as well. And because obviously we want to know what other fans thought of it. Because to me, like I say, a lot of the times it felt like a season review. If I watched this or saw this come up on Netflix and it was from another club, I'm not going to lie, within 15 minutes I probably would have turned it off because it did come across as a season review at times and for large parts at times as well. But then, like I say, you get an episode where you get a load of behind-the-scenes footage of this, that and the other and things you really wanted to see and what you're there for. And then the next it would be purely about the football and interviews we've already seen. But I'm not going to get back into that. But yeah, my brother, anyway, he said that, it really does give you an insight that, he obviously knew that Sunderland went through a lot of shit last season, but didn't realise how much of a cock Rodwell is as well. And he also found himself with a bit of a soft spot for George Honeyman, which I need to give him a shout out because he was awesome in that documentary. You could just see how much the club means to him. He absolutely loves that club. But yeah, I think that's how I'm going to sum it up, guys. I did enjoy it. It was just a very difficult watch for me. That's my sort of rating of it. I enjoyed it, but it was a very much a difficult watch. Down below, if you have already seen it, guys, let me know what you thought of Sunderland Till I Die. I hope you have enjoyed this little review, something a bit different. I've had no sort of structure to this video. I've just been babbling on. So I hope you have enjoyed, and if you have, please hit the like button for me. It'd be massively appreciated. And I'll see you soon. Stay jammy.